You could have made a deal. Is it any wonder that Zelensky is now warning NATO's European members that they face an imminent threat? Many believe that Putin wants to invade the Baltic states next, with Ukraine's own intelligence suggesting as much. Trump is sending mixed messages to Zelensky, and there's still the possibility that the US will withdraw from NATO to consider. If that happens, NATO's nuclear threat diminishes enormously, leaving only France and Britain as the nations capable of striking Russia with nukes, which would further open the door for a Russian war against what remains of NATO. The question now is simple. Is NATO ready for that war? It depends on who you ask. In June 2024, the UK Defence Journal stacked NATO without the US against Russia in an in-depth analysis. It pointed out that the combined strength of NATO's members without the US is far higher than Ukraine's when Russia invaded in February 2022. On the personnel front, NATO without America has 1.5 million active military personnel, which matches up well with the 1.32 million active soldiers Russia currently has. It's also worth noting that Russia has churned through over 862,000 troops in Ukraine, leaving it with a military predominantly made up of inexperienced conscripts, contract mercenaries, and even soldiers from other countries such as North Korea. NATO also has access to more advanced technology than Russia, the journal argues. Europe's NATO members have invested heavily in next-generation aircraft, cyber defenses, and precision-guided munitions, all of which make the collective a viable and powerful foe for Russia to take on. However, this version of NATO would also miss the US dramatically. Its nuclear threat will be cut down, with France and Britain combining to have 515 nuclear warheads, compared to Russia's 1,549 strategic nukes and its remaining stockpile of 4,380. If Putin reaches for the nuclear button, he could devastate all NATO nations at once. France and Britain could do the same to Russia, though with less firepower than it would have if the US brought its 5,225 nuclear warheads to the engagement. European NATO also relies heavily on the US for operational intelligence and missile defense. Plus, America's large stockpile of aerial tankers would be missed, as these important aircraft are in short supply in Europe and would prove vital for keeping NATO's more powerful aerial forces refueled for assaults against Russia. The journal's conclusion is that NATO without the US could fend off a Russian attack well during the first few months, causing massive damage to Putin's forces. But what happens months down the line when Russia is still coming and NATO has depleted a large portion of its munitions? A February 2025 examination of the same topic by UK Defence Journal mentions the same issues. Again, the conclusion is that European NATO, and the continent as a whole, could mount a robust defence against Putin's forces. However, sustaining operations beyond the opening phases of such a war would see this America-less version of NATO struggle without the intelligence, logistical, and technical support the US has long provided. The NATO members that would be on the front lines in a war against Russia are even less confident. In December 2024, leaders from Latvia, Estonia, and Finland all made the same claim that NATO is not ready to fight against Russia without US involvement. "That's absolutely clear," said Latvian President Edgars Rinkēvičs. "We can't keep simply hoping for a situation where the US remains much involved in Europe." Estonian Prime Minister Kristen Michal added, "We have to ramp up our defense capabilities because of Russia's threat and its inability to be a democracy and operate in a rule-based world." It's worth noting that Estonia and Latvia spent 3.4% and 3.15% of their GDP on defense as of 2024. Finland has also broken through NATO's 2% target, spending 2.4% of its GDP. Those European NATO nations are taking the Russian threat seriously. Perhaps the problem is that the rest of NATO isn't doing the same. And it's that discoordination between NATO's European members that could be the alliance's undoing if Trump withdraws the US from the coalition. European NATO has the numbers and equipment to match Russia. However, if it gets bogged down in bureaucracy and debates on how to react to a Russian victory against Ukraine, it could leave itself open to being caught out.